Welcome to January 25th reading. Today we are in Job 22, and we are hearing Eliphaz, his third response to Job. And so kind of we have this bantering back and forth, really at no fault to Job, because he ends up having to defend himself over and over with his friends. And I don't know about you, but as I read through this, I get tired of hearing his friends and the things that they keep coming up with, the accusations. Imagine how Job must have felt, how tiring it must have been to have been under this scrutiny by his friends. And just something to consider as we read today. So let's jump in. Then Eliphaz the Temanite replied, "Can a person do anything to help God? Can even a wise person be helpful to him? Is it any advantage to the Almighty if you are righteous? Would it be any gain to him if you were perfect? Is it because you're so pious that he accuses you and brings judgment against you? No, it's because of your wickedness. There's no limit to your sins. For example, you must have lent money to your friend and demanded clothing as a security. Yes, you stripped him to the bone. You must have refused water for the thirsty and food for the hungry. You probably think the land belongs to the powerful and only the privileged have a right to it. You must have sent widows away empty-handed and crushed the hopes of orphans. That is why you are surrounded by traps and tremble from sudden fears. That is why you cannot see in the darkness and waves of water cover you. God is so great, higher than the heavens, higher than the farthest stars. But you reply, that's why God can't see what I'm doing. How can he judge through the thick darkness? For thick clouds swirl about him and he cannot see us. He's way up there, walking on the vault of heaven. Will you continue on the old paths where evil people have walked? They were snatched away in the prime of life, the foundations of their lives washed away. For they said to God, leave us alone. What can the Almighty do to us? Yet he was the one who filled their homes with good things, so I will have nothing to do with that kind of thinking. The righteous will be happy to see the wicked destroyed, and the innocent will laugh in contempt. They will say, see how our enemies have been destroyed. The last of them have been consumed in the fire. Submit to God, and you will have peace. Then things will go well for you. Listen to his instructions and store them in your heart. And if you return to the Almighty, you will be restored. So clean up your life. If you give up your lust for money and throw your precious gold into the river, the Almighty himself will be your treasure. He will be your precious silver. Then you will take delight in the Almighty and look up to God. You will pray to him and he will hear you, and you will fulfill your vows to him. You will succeed in whatever you choose to do, and light will shine on the road ahead of you. If people are in trouble and you say, help them, God will save them. Even sinners will be rescued. They will be rescued because your hands are pure. Job's response to Eliphaz. Then Job spoke again. My complaint today is still a bitter one, and I try hard not to groan aloud. If only I knew where to find God, I would go to his court. I would lay out my case and present my arguments. Then I would listen to his reply and understand what he says to me. Would he use his great power to argue with me? No, he would give me a fair hearing. Honest people can reason with him. So I would be forever acquitted by my judge. I go east, he is not there. I go west, but I cannot find him. I do not see him in the north, for he is hidden. I look to the south, but he is concealed. But he knows where I'm going, and when he tests me, I will come out as pure as gold. For I have stayed on God's paths. I have followed his ways and not turned aside. I have not departed from his commands, but have treasured his words more than daily food. But once he has made his decision, who can change his mind? Whatever he wants to do, he does. So he will do to me whatever he has planned. He controls my destiny. No wonder I am so terrified in his presence. When I think of it, terror grips me. God has made me sick at heart. The Almighty has terrified me. Darkness is all around me. Thick, impenetrable darkness is everywhere. Job 24. So why doesn't the Almighty bring the wicked to judgment? Why must the godly wait for him in vain? Evil people steal land by moving the boundary markers. They steal livestock and put them in their own pastures. They take the orphan's donkey and demand the widow's ox as security for a loan. The poor are pushed off the path. The needy must hide together for safety. Like wild donkeys in the wilderness, the poor must spend all their time looking for food, searching even in the desert for food for their children. They harvest a field they do not own, and they glean in the vineyards of the wicked. All night they lie naked in the cold without clothing or covering. They are soaked by mountain showers, and they huddle against the rocks for want of a home. The wicked snatch a widow's child from her breast, taking the baby as security for a loan. The poor must go about naked without any clothing. They harvest food for others while they themselves are starving. They pressed out olive oil without being allowed to taste it, and they tread in the winepress as they suffer from thirst. The groans of the dying rise from the city, and the wounded cry for help, yet God ignores their moaning. Wicked people rebel against the light. They refuse to acknowledge its ways or stay in its paths. The murderer rises in the early dawn to kill the poor and needy. At night, he is a thief. The adulterer waits for the twilight, saying, "No one will see me then," and he hides his face so no one will know him. Thieves break into houses at night and sleep in the daytime. They are not acquainted with the light. The black night is their morning, and they ally themselves with the terrors of the darkness. But they disappear like foam down a river. Everything they own is cursed, and they are afraid to enter their own vineyards. The grave consumes sinners, just as drought and heat consume snow. Their own mothers will forget them. Maggots will find them sweet to eat. No one will remember them. Wicked people are broken, like a tree in the storm. They cheat the woman who has no son to help her. They refuse to help the needy widow. God in his power drags away the rich. They may rise high, but they have no assurance of life. They may be allowed to live in security, but God is always watching them. And though they are great now, in a moment they will be gone like all others, cut off like heads of grain. Can anyone claim otherwise? Who can prove me wrong? Job 25. Now Bildad speaks up again. Then Bildad the Shuhite replied, God is powerful and dreadful. He enforces peace in the heavens. Who is able to count his heavenly army? Doesn't his light shine on all the earth? How can a mortal be innocent before God? Can anyone born of a woman be pure? God is more glorious than the moon. He shines brighter than the stars, and in comparison, people are maggots. We mortals are mere worms. Okay, so much of the same. They're back and forth, and just as I mentioned earlier, as Job is trying to defend himself. It's interesting that Eliphaz, that he comes at Job again this time, and he says, for example, you must have lent money to your friend and demanded clothing and security. He's saying you must have done this. Because again, he was like, you've got money, you're rich. Somebody must have come and borrowed money from you or something, and you must have lent them money and taken their clothing, and that's not fair for you to do that. You must have stripped him to the bone. You must have refused water for the thirsty. I mean, they're really going at the at the core of who he is. Can you imagine? They're like, you must have done something really heinous, like somebody who is thirsty. You must have denied them, water. And then they go, you probably think that the land, you must be walking around arrogant, like the land is all yours. The land belongs only to the powerful, only to to the privileged. Nobody else has a right to it. I mean, you see what they're doing? They're heaping things upon him. Be careful, again, about here's the thing we need to be cautious about. And I think what this brings to my mind is be careful about building a straw man in your mind about people. We can, if we aren't careful, we can begin to build a straw man about somebody to reaffirm something inside of us, not the truth. And if we aren't careful, we can easily do that. So be careful about where your mind goes about people. And what's interesting is Job was a righteous man, and yet these men, Eliphaz here, he's builds this straw man. Why does Eliphaz need to build a straw man about Job in his mind and his heart? Why do we have to do that? Why do we have to convince ourselves that somebody else is, like Job, who's righteous, who's walking in the right way? He must be in the wrong. It happens a lot. It's happened to me. People are, this person must be doing this, or they must be, and it's a sad thing to be on the receiving end of that. And again, we need to make sure that we don't find ourselves in that same place. And so, give people the benefit of the doubt. Believe in others until they legitimately, give you reason to doubt them. So it's important that we posture our minds and our hearts about people, concerning people in a very careful, biblical way. I think that we should follow God's direction in how we treat people. Do unto others as you would have them do to you, is what the scripture says. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining me today. We'll be back tomorrow as we continue to work our way through the book of Job. Hope you have a great day. I just encourage you, try to make sure that you go worship with other believers tomorrow. Something that's really important for us to do. So God bless you.